2021, I will call this special meeting of the Kennedale Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Let the record reflect that members Owens, Biscoe, Carruthers, and Clark are present. Ms. Moody and Mr. Strange are absent. First item on our agenda is public comments on agenda items. Has anyone signed up?
No.
Since no one has signed up for public comments on the agenda item, we will move to the next item, which is information with regard to the public meeting concerning property development in Kennedale ISD attendance zone. I guess the floor is open to whoever is going to be our first speaker with regard to this issue on behalf of
Douglas, I'll turn it over to you, and y'all can figure out how y'all want to present. Brian, we have no sound. Douglas, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
We can't hear you. We're not hearing you.
Still nothing?
Now we can hear you.
All right. And I'm going to share my screen here. Is everybody able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Again, my name is Douglas Cooper. I'm with MMA. We're a local engineering planning firm here in Arlington. We also have Vince Bravado, Keaton Herrera with Family Development, who will be developing the townhome community, which we're here to speak about today. We also have Robert Roselle, the developer of the Sublette Marketplace, which is the shopping center there at Sublette and 287, and Jim Maybach, the real estate broker. So what I thought what we'd do here first is walk you through the project, what we're proposing with the townhome community, and then I'll hand it over to either Vince or Keaton with Family Development to give you a little bit of background about their company and history and background on their communities that they build here in the state of Texas as well as across the U.S. So I have a few slides prepared, kind of give you a high-level overview of the development, and then we can open it up to questions from there. So what we're proposing is on approximately 9 acres. We went through rezoning currently with the City of Arlington from a commercial zoning to a multifamily based district. We're proposing approximately 135 luxury lease townhomes, and that equates to about 15 units an acre. This will be a private gated community with access off of US 287, as well as through the common access aisle there within the Kroger Sublette Marketplace. We are targeting a renter by choice, or what that typically means is these are folks who could generally afford a $1,500, $1,800 a month mortgage in a nice single family home, but who prefer that lock and leave lifestyle, that low maintenance lifestyle, where they have a home here in this community that's highly amenitized, but then also don't have the upkeep and maintenance that might come with a single family home. These are becoming very popular in the DFW Metroplex to respond to that missing middle or housing need. So it's a unique product choice, certainly new to Arlington. Again, they're highly amenitized, pool, a network of walking trails, sidewalks to really promote outdoor activities and a healthy lifestyle. All of the units have private yards that are all professionally maintained through a management company. We've done a great job, I think, of dressing up our streetscape. So as you come down that south corridor of 287, either through Arlington or ultimately through Sublette to Kennedale, we wanted to create a nice frontage to really highlight the architecture and landscaping. On the slide here, you just see a lot of the listed amenities to the left of the screen and some there on the right of the screen. These next couple slides are perspective renderings of what the townhome community will look like from a few different angles. So here's what the main entrance would look like if you were to come through the Sublette Marketplace portion. Our main entrance, heavily landscaped. The private yard you can see there left to right of the screen. The focal point is the leasing office, community center, where you've kind of got centralized place to pick up your mail and packages, business center, whatnot. So this is that view. If you recall back on that site plan, we had a central green belt. So this is right at the heart of the community where all of these homes will front this. Again, just kind of having very passive amenities here, where you get out, have do yoga, read a book, take a walk, and throughout all of those trails. And then this last image is what you would see, again, if you were traveling south on the 287 frontage road and you were to look over to the right. We pulled the community back off to create a linear park with seating areas, ornamental iron fencing to create that security measure, but also, have an open, inviting community. So that's a high-level overview of the proposed use and what we're looking to do. We feel this is a good fit in this area, provided all of the success that has happened at the Sublette Marketplace with the pad site development along the frontage, the grocery store itself, the latest edition of the LA Fitness and retail. And so the introduction of a residential component will really help further that spending there at the Sublette Marketplace, as well as Sublette Crossing there on the south side of 287. And it's just a unique product that is certainly new, and it's certainly new to this US 287 corridor. So with that, I will turn it over to the family development folks to kind of walk you through their company, what they do and what they've seen in their communities from a tenant mix. And I think that'll really speak to maybe some of the expressed concerns that we've heard in discussions with Chad and then just from the board. So with that, I'll hand it over.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. I can't see anybody now other than Douglas, but my name's Vincent Barbato. I'm with Family Development. I'm one of the founding members, owners of Family Development. We are a company that family owned and operated. My brother and I, and then another set of brothers and a fifth partner who is like a brother. We build in California, Arizona, Texas, and we're also going into the Idaho markets. Being a private home builder, we tend to really have to specialize in certain niches, because that's what gives us our competitive edge over the larger public builders who can build for less money and typically build more vanilla designs. We tend to focus on niches where design really makes a difference to people, and we can give them value through design. And this community is one such community. As Douglas pointed out, our demographic, it's the new phrase, is renters by choice. Kind of in a more colloquial way of saying it, this will be a luxury lease community. Our rents are typically 25 to 30% higher than the similarly sized apartment, garden style apartment. And the reason why we typically can get the 25 to 30% premium is because of the way that we position these communities specifically for two demographics. Those two demographics are what we call older millennials, and that translated, they're typically ages 28 to 35. We find that this stage in the millennial owner's life, they're not ready to purchase a home. They have the income to be able to buy a home. They have the wherewithal to afford the mortgage payment, but quite often they're not sure that they want to set their roots down in one specific area yet. They still feel, most of them are not married, so they still feel like they want to wait on that buying decision until they do settle down and start their family. But they also don't want to live in an apartment community, typical apartment community anymore, because that's not the lifestyle that they're looking for. They're certainly not looking for the pool party lifestyle any longer. They're much more serious about their lives. Or they're also not looking to, they're looking to upgrade their living experience. So that typically has been about 50% of the people that lease homes in these communities. The other 50%, renters by choice, tend to be made up of younger, but some older, but younger baby boomers, such as myself. Empty nesters is another term that we use for them. Their motivation is they've had the house, they've owned the home, they no longer want the burden that comes along with home ownership, the maintenance costs of landscaping, maybe a pool. They don't want the maintenance costs of the home. As Douglas mentioned, they want to simplify their lives. But they also don't want to make what many of them consider a drastic move down for them to go from a home to a garden-style apartment. So they're looking for something that feels like a home to them, but is much more affordable on both a monthly basis as well as physical maintenance goes. And they tend to make up the other 50% of our renter profile. In our experience of actually building communities positioned this way, I believe I mentioned this in the city council meeting, but our actual percentage of school-aged children was 8.8% for the three communities that we've done that were similarly positioned. What I did do is I did some research with the Census Bureau to find out some other data points, and I also created other data points too that I wanted to share with you today to kind of give you a feel for how we're going to position this community, as well as ideally allay most, if not all, of your concerns about the number of school-aged children that will potentially be in this community. According to the Census Bureau, communities such as ours typically have attracted 11.3%. So if there's 135 units, roughly they're saying that would be about the equivalent of 15 to 16 children, school-aged children will be in the community. Our 8.8%, or rounded up to 10, would suggest that there might be 13 to 14 children. So they're fairly consistent with each other. But to give you a little bit more of some assurance, as a private home builder, it's obviously in our best interest to make a profit. That's why we're in business after all. And in order to do so, we have to market correctly. And everything we're doing for this community will be marketed to those two demographics that I spoke of, because we know that the younger families and the families that have school-aged children, they're typically not wanting to spend any excess income, if they have any at the end of the month, on unnecessary luxuries, which this community would be probably considered an unnecessary luxury, meaning if I can get a 3-bedroom apartment for $300 to $400 less a month, I'd rather have that $300 to $400 to spend on my children, their needs, their medical needs, their school needs, their food needs. As a father of 5, I can tell you I know how much children eat. So families typically don't want to spend their income on an unnecessary luxury as as what we're presenting in this luxury community, but our demographic does. The millennials without children and the baby boomers who have empty nesters, who are empty nesters. That's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for a community that gives them what they perceive as a higher quality of life. So as business people, we can assure you that our marketing will not be directed toward families. I believe one of the council members asked if we would put a playground in one of our common areas, and the answer is no, we don't want to put a playground in the common area because that's not our demographic. We're not trying to attract families, and that might help allay some of your concerns on two levels. One, that can be proved to you that we're not going to be directing our efforts toward that demographic. And number two, should that demographic come to our leasing office, they most likely won't be attracted to our community because it really is an adult-centered community with our amenities all being more directed, as Douglas pointed out, toward yoga, open area, walking your dog, having dog parks, sitting areas, much more passive areas for open space reflection rather than any children-directed amenities. The other thing I thought that I really wanted to point out is we also do build have a 4-bedroom unit that we've offered at other communities that we have consciously chosen not to offer at this community because of our conviction that families with school-aged children who generally might look to a 4-bedroom is not our target, so therefore we did not want to have any 4 bedrooms. And on that same point, of the 135 units, only 27 of them will be 3-bedroom units. The other 108, which is the majority, of course, will be 2-bedroom units. And the point that I also wanted to highlight, and I believe the mayor touched on this at the very end of the council meeting, and that is it would be erroneous to assume that bedrooms equal beds. What we have found, very much the case in our communities as well as in our research with competing communities, is that just because it's a bedroom doesn't mean that it's used as a bedroom. We have had we've had single millennials, not even coupled millennials, who have rented a 3-bedroom from us because they wanted an office, at-home office for themselves, and they wanted a guest room for when they had guests come over. We have had our baby boomers rent a 3-bedroom because they want the bedroom for themselves, of course. They want an office for themselves, and then they want a media room, or what I call an escape room, just another room to go to. And one thing that we've learned over the past year with COVID, and that has really, really highlighted this need and has made it all the more prevalent, is how important it is for people to have at-home spaces. Because I think obviously COVID has forced people home, and they've realized that they need much more space at home. But that's not a trend. I think that that's a shift, and that more and more people are really looking to have more rooms for other uses than bedrooms, such as an office, a den, a guest room. So from our standpoint, we are directing all of our efforts, which include not just our marketing efforts, but our architecture, as well as our land plan and our design, to solely the people without children who are looking to have what will hopefully be considered a more luxury lifestyle offered to them in this community. And we feel that this location allows us to do that because it does create a great opportunity for them to be able to walk to the grocery stores, walk to restaurants, walk to the gym, walk to all the amenities, rather than having to get in their car and drive. We feel that it'll be a great location that goes along with our marketing efforts and all of our architecture. So we are sensitive to the school board's concern about overcrowding. And I want you to understand that we do recognize that that is something that all school boards need to protect against, the quality of education that's offered to their students. But we can tell you by our past experience, by our current experience, and by the way that we have designed everything, that that I don't believe, and I don't think that you would agree, that having roughly 10% of our residents having children would pose that type of a problem. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them, and I really do appreciate you taking the time and giving us the ability to present our community to you.
Thank you. I will then open up to board members for questions, and we'll start on the right or start on the left?
Doesn't matter.
We'll start on the right. Ms. Carruthers.
Okay, I have a couple. Will you define the difference when you say townhome versus apartment?
Well, I'm not sure if you're asking for a definition from a legal standpoint or from a aesthetic standpoint. The reason why they're townhomes is because, why we are calling them townhomes, are because there are two levels, and the upper and lower level are on top of each other. So they're not stacked in such a way that you'll have neighbors who are above you or below you. So you basically have the whole vertical space that is yours. And that's one of the benefits over an apartment style life, where you don't have to share your ceiling or your floor, as it will, with a neighbor. And also the fact that we have a 2-car garage that is attached and provides our residents with direct access really separates us from the apartment experience. So essentially, these are designed as a typical townhome that you might find for sale, in that you inhabit all of the vertical space. I hope that helps.
Okay, yes. I noticed you talked about it a little bit, and it says it up there. Do y'all own these two townhome communities still? The ones you were
Yes.
referring to?
Yes.
So you typically.
Now, I will say, I think it was brought up that ownership can change, and I'm not going to profess to you that that ownership won't change at some point, but I will say that what can't change is our architecture. What can't change is that there's 108 2-bedroom units, or it's not likely to change because they're etched in stone, if you will, pun intended. And also our amenities and everything will be created. Now, I know in a change of ownership, you might think that somebody else might position the community differently, but I think that that's highly unlikely because of the income factor and the fact that for the community to pencil or to make a profit, we're counting on having rents that have that 20 to 30% premium over similarly sized garden apartments, and it's not likely that anybody's going to be able to achieve that premium by focusing their efforts on leasing to families with school-aged children, for all the reasons that I detailed already.
And I might just add to that from a down the road scenario, should the property change hands in ownership and somebody wanted to come back and add density, that would all have to go back through a completely new public hearing, planning and zoning, city council process, to where that would all be vetted, and we would essentially, or whoever would be back before you all to have that conversation. So the plan we showed is very much locked in, with the city, and the essentially gets built just like that. So even through this early on zoning process, we have to provide extremely detailed information on floor plans and open space and the architecture and building materials. So what you see here is how it's going to take shape, once we get down the road and under construction.
Well, I guess my concern is most all apartments are sold upon completion. And so with that, I mean, I don't know about what's in Arizona, but I do know that for a fact in Texas and in the DFW marketplace. So for selling them and someone coming in and putting a playground right there in the middle, I mean, that would be our concern, I think. And that, I don't know what y'all's have, if that's the kind of business you're in, but I know that that's what most 75 to a lot % of apartments built. That's what happens as soon as that substantial completion is done.
Developers develop and then they sell. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns. And what guarantee do you have that it's not going to be sold in a short period of time or quick turnaround? And I go back to the millennials with the 2 and 3 bedrooms, and you're saying that the age is 25 to 35. Well, that's when they're starting families, and that is a concern.
Right, and I understand your concern, and I'm not here to give you any guarantee that typically, just to answer the question, you're right. It is probably, I don't know what the percentage is, whether it's 75%, 80%, or 50%, but it is certainly a reality that upon stabilization, many of these communities do get sold. So I'm not going to deny that fact or give you any guarantee that we won't do that. But what the guarantee would be is that they get sold because an entity wants to make money. I mean, it's a business. This isn't and I don't say this loosely, this isn't a charitable effort. It's a business that requires that we achieve a certain level of revenue in order to make it work. And the only way we're going to be able to sell it is if the revenue works, that revenue model works, and that revenue model is built on leases that are significantly higher than, as I said, a similarly sized apartment community. And so any subsequent buyer of this community is highly unlikely to deviate from that program because they too would only be buying it as a revenue play, as a business play. So,
yeah.
and again,
and just to add to that real quickly.
Sure.
This is Keaton with Family Development. As we spoke about the renter demographic, about 50% of these renters come from an HOA environment, so they understand the upkeep and the requirements of keeping your unit appealing and fresh. And that's one of the main draws for them to stay in a community like this, is because they're able to command that level of pristine quality that you see when you drive in the community, not just in the first 2 years, but over the life.
Well, and to address the concern about the millennials you are correct. We are getting the millennials in that transition stage between, call it, post-graduation childhood to starting their families. But you're talking about, to afford our rents, you're talking about a single or even a couple that have significant income. And once they start their family, that's when they're going to want to establish their roots. And that's when they're going to be much more inclined to want to purchase a home. Our rents will be comparable to mortgages that for a similarly sized home, they'll be comparable to a mortgage. So what you'll find is that the millennials, rather than staying in this community, that's when they're going to make the decision, okay, our children are now going to start school, we need to buy a house, we need to start the investment. And hopefully the American dream stays true with the millennials. I try to instill it in my kids. But that's when they're gonna be inclined to now move out of this community and purchase a home. And ideally, it works well for cities as well, because it's kind of a great place to grow future residents that will be still contributing to the community, because what they'll find is they really like this part of Arlington, so now they're going to want to find a home that they can buy and start building equity and start their families. So this is really the perfect transition product for them, which is why I think it's so attractive to them. And they're not gonna wanna, again, spend that $200, $300, $400 a month on a luxury community. They're gonna need that $200, $300, $400 a month to pay for braces, pay for food, pay for all the other things that come along with children.
Liz, any questions? My questions would be, what was the rental cost for the 2-bedroom versus 3-bedroom?
Keaton, you can address that better than I can.
Yes, the 2 bedrooms will start at $1,900 and the 3-bedroom will start around $2,250 a month.
And did you evaluate the rental cost for the now existing 4 complexes, high-density apartment complexes within a quarter mile of this property?
Yes, we analyzed all properties within the vicinity of this site. However, as we've attested, this product's a little bit different, so it's a little apple and oranges. But yes, we have performed market rate research on what apartment goes for in the immediate area.
And again, it's been my experience that oftentimes when you have a new residential unit come on board, a person might move from an existing one to the better one because it's got a little more room or something different. I'm just trying to make sure that when you compare your other properties, how do they compare to the density of residential, so apartment units or lease units within a half mile of those properties? Were they similarly situated?
They're going to be about a 10 to 20 cent a foot per month increase, and then you add the additional square feet on top of that, and you're paying for that as well. So you'll find a delta of probably between a two bedroom at our community and a 2-bedroom in a community similarly close or to this site is probably going to be north of $500 a month.
Well, my question was comparing to the other properties where you used your population figures, how did those properties relate in terms of the densities compared to the densities of residential structures within a half a mile of this structure?
Yeah, I want to say we are significantly less. Some of those complexes I believe you're referring to are closer to the 20 to 22 units an acre, unit per acre, and with the 135 on the 9 acres, that puts us right at 15 units an acre.
No, I was asking, you compared populations based upon existing units or developments elsewhere. In those surrounding 2 other developments, what were the densities of population around those units compared to this one? Because you gave a population figure for them, and so I just want to know what the populations were in relation to one another.
I think there's a little bit of a disconnect. Where we were drawing our figures was based upon percentages per 100 units. And that also goes to the amount of units within the multifamily community and the year of the construction. So what we derived our figures off of was a new construction 20+ unit apartment complex yields just around 11% children per unit.
So that wasn't representative
Per
of,
100 units.
that wasn't representative of your other units. That's a different figure.
No, I think it applies to new construction over 20 units.
What I was saying, I think, if maybe I was unclear, but what I was saying is that in our other similarly positioned communities, where we've positioned our communities for millennials and baby boomers, our experience has been 8.8%, call it 9%, even call it 10% if you want. But to take it further, our research department did look up the U.S. Census Bureau, their statistics, which were updated this past year, 2020, And according to their statistics for communities that are our size and our nature, their statistics show that 11.3% of the units have school-aged children being defined as children between the ages of 5 and 18. Our own experience has been the 8.8, but the Census Bureau notes on their website 11.3%.
Okay. Can you tell me when you began planning this development and when your first contact with Arlington occurred?
Douglas, can you address that?
Yeah, these zoning cases take, significant amount of planning and effort to pull together. So I want to say we probably first engaged the city in August to get to this point.
Of 2020?
Yes.
So you had plans drawn up by architects and engineering studies and all of that done in 5 months?
So for the initial entitlements for zoning, the typical package that the city requires is going to be preliminary engineering, schematic development type engineering. So we're showing, how we plan to serve the development with infrastructure, water, sewer, storm. So that's at a very high level look. It's not designing that actual infrastructure. It's kind of showing how we're tying into some of the existing public infrastructure. We have to take the architecture to a schematic level as well to demonstrate we're meeting design criteria, building material percentages, minimum square footages for floor plans. There's a whole section on open space, amenities in terms of tree mitigation, tree plantings, fencing requirements, access. So, these do take time, but provided, they're fairly aggressive, we try to work pretty diligently to pull that together, have the appropriate conversations with city staff on checking the boxes with.
So let me reiterate, Douglas. So from August, September, October, and November, when it went to planning and zoning, 4 months, three and a half months, you got surveying done, engineering studies, all of that was done in that amount of time.
During COVID.
I'll go back and we can certainly get you the date, but those types of things do take place. Our firm's been involved in the phase 2 of the Sublette Marketplace. So with that, we had a significant amount of data and survey already completed. So that certainly helps, compress that schedule a bit.
So you were building part of that Sublette Kroger area?
We were involved in the engineering surveying for the phase 2, so where you see the LA Fitness, the retail center, correct.
Do you know what impact fees you will owe to Arlington for water, sewer, and/or roadway, if any?
Typically on a development of this size, between roadway, water, sewer, it's going to be in the $250,000, $300,000 range, and then you have a park fee, which is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,400 a unit. So that certainly is a significant amount of money for the park fees.
And you understand the city's able to recoup some of that additional cost created by that, but school districts don't have anything but potentially tax increase. We don't have the ability to impose impact fees, and there may be some impact fees. My last question relates to, assuming that there are potentially going to be children here, what's the plan for buses access to this facility?
I'll let Vince or Keaton, but again, my suspicion is there won't be any bus routes to the community for, I guess, a lot of the reasons we just went through, and it's just not typical, I think, to have that to where you kind of have an isolated community by itself and not a lot of density that you might see in a single-family neighborhood.
Well, but the reality is, if there's a student there and they need transportation, the district has to provide it. So,
Even one.
you know, what is the plan? It doesn't look like buses can navigate in the interior very easily. The only access road to this is behind the Kroger, where you have your trash receptacles. And if you drive there in the morning, you have nearly every delivery truck there parked in the fire lane, blocking that road because they're too wide. So again, in terms of planning a community, even if you don't plan for a child, you know, we at least need to be involved in how we're going to pick up that child. You know, they can go and try to turn around in that central space. They can't access if it's gated. So I just want to make sure that we address that issue, because it is an issue, whether you have one child or 20. And if you have, depending on the grades, you could have more than one bus having to go through there.
So something that's important to note, just in terms of, you know, if we're talking about access with the school bus, you know, life safety is one of the first things that we'll look at in terms of this community or any type of project. So a fire truck is going to be very similar in terms of a wheelbase to a school bus. So all of these internal roads, you know, comply with minimum widths and turning radiuses to maneuver a vehicle such as a fire truck. And that's even if you need to get inside the community. If there was a need for a bus pickup location, these drive aisles are similarly constructed around the Kroger. We'll have pedestrian gates and access to allow our tenants to walk, to be able to walk to the Sublette Marketplace or some of the other pad sites, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks. So the folks could certainly just take a step directly outside of the community without a bus even having to enter in through the gates. Should they need to, again, there's adequate turnaround facilities.
Again, I
can say that, you know, in 35 years of doing development, we've always had to deal with the Department of Transportation, and, you know, as Douglas laid out, and safety is always a critical issue. But we never have actually had to plan buses, and it's probably for that reason, Douglas. We certainly don't envision that that people are going to be sneaking in and out of this community, dodging transportation trucks and dumpsters. The intent of the city, as well as our intent, will be that there's easy access, vehicular as well as pedestrian traffic, to and from the community.
Well, I appreciate that, but again, I have taken the time to drive by there at times when our buses will be running, and I have a you know, 4-door car, not very large, and I have to maneuver left or right past the unloading trucks parked in the fire lane behind this building. So again, my car isn't as wide as a bus. I am just telling you, even though Arlington may say that, they're not patrolling parking in the bus lane at this, or the fire lane at this time. They have their deliveries in the back. And I'm just asking, there doesn't sound like there's much consideration for it. I'm assuming our buses would have to enter off of the access road entrance, drive down and turn back out through the Kroger parking lots, probably. Because if they came the other way, kids will be coming across that area to get to them on the Kroger side. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there a way to ensure that there is adequate safety and space for any child who's there to come out of this community and be able to access a bus?
Yeah, the infrastructure that's in place is going to be perfectly fine for a bus to enter in off the Sublette or the frontage road. And we've gone to great lengths to make this a pedestrian-friendly community, not only internal, but the ability to have sidewalks elsewhere for, you know, adults, people, you know, parents pushing a stroller, or should there be kids that need to get to the bus, there's refuge for that. But again, the fact of the matter is the planning with phase one, with the infrastructure, as well as what we've considered with this development, there's thought gone into life safety measures for vehicles such as fire trucks to get there. So I feel confident that a bus will be able to make those maneuvers.
Well, do you think you could secure with Arlington some agreement that, to the extent I mean, just looking at that drawing there, where it's, the pinch point is where the refuse bin is. On either side, east or west, is where trucks are parking between the larger areas to the end of the building where the Kroger is. So a bus coming from the east is gonna come down and have to navigate, I guess, to the double drive there and pick up kids there after moving around trucks that may be parked in those lanes. Is there any way you could secure, to the extent that it's necessary, that they will enforce and not have vehicles parked behind there to ensure the safety of a student loading or unloading on a bus?
Well, these two dark areas you see, the shadows of the building, those are two dedicated truck loading docks that the trucks should be pulling out of the fire lane, out of the drive aisle to make, the necessary, deliveries.
I understand.
So, that's almost an enforcement issue by code if there's trucks parking there. And I think that's an issue whether there's a single-family community here, a multifamily community, or just another commercial development where they're just not supposed to be parked there. So.
Well, I understand it, and I understand there are trucks parked in the bays, but there are also trucks double parked from there for the next part of that driveway, and trucks on the opposite side close to where you're gonna put your walkways right now. I'm just saying, there is a problem now. It will potentially be compounded if we have to put buses through there. And
We have a great relationship with the Kroger, with the management, and I think with that great observation, Robert on the call, we'd be happy to revisit with them and just bring that to their attention that's, with the existing condition as well as the new community, if there's a way that they can better monitor and police that to keep that free and clear.
I'll move to my left, Mr. Bisco.
Yes, on that picture you have that, is that number 7, is that your main entrance?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what this view would be.
Where is your entrance coming off of 287? Or do you have one coming off 287?
They don't.
We do not have an access off 287. We worked through some concept plans with TxDOT, and there's some existing conditions that really prohibit direct access to this lot from US 287. And so based on a community of this size, we're required to have 2 points of access. So our main entry there is shown in number 7. And then we have a emergency access or exit only shown here where my cursor is.
Okay, so anybody that's living there, whether they're a child walking to school or a adult driving in, has to go between that Kroger building and what is now the dog food, the dog or the pet store?
Pet store,
To that light?
area, all that. I think it's the tire stores coming in there now too, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's auto mechanic or something like that. So everybody's going through that section?
I'm sorry?
Is everybody going through that section? There's no other entryway into that? So if
Right, so
I've got
we
a high school
anticipate-
kid that's walking home, he's got to walk through that parking lot to get to the apartments or condos.
Right, so what we would anticipate is most folks coming south, on 287, exiting, they come into the site here, behind the Kroger into the main entrance. You might have a situation where somebody would be coming eastbound on Sublet that would then that may choose to come up through the shared access easement there through the marketplace. You can see we've highlighted here where we'll be extending sidewalk down into the shopping center to connect with some existing sidewalks and infrastructure to create more of an ability to get off of the drive aisle or out of the way of a car, so you have kind of a dedicated walking path there to get you down to Sublet. And then along 287, as part of Sublet Marketplace, there was a sidewalk constructed along that frontage, and we would just be picking that up on our development as well. So you'd have the frontage road, or what would probably be a more pleasant experience, which would be just to walk through the shopping center on the sidewalk system there.
Does it, sorry,
Go ahead.
is it normal that a quote-unquote nice upper-level luxury community would go through the back of a parking lot to get to their entrance?
Currently, we have numerous communities that have a component directly adjacent to a commercial center. Some don't have the access directly through the shopping center. They'll have the secondary access connected to the shopping center with a pedestrian gate. But pretty much all of our projects are directly adjacent to retail, as you see within this site. So yes, our luxury communities do have that element and component.
And you're gonna build sidewalks on the 287 side also?
I believe, Douglas?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's correct.
You do know that 287 is expanding on that, so when are you guys starting construction? And what's the estimated time of completion?
So the next step would be to move into working construction drawings. That is a whole nother process through city permit review, building permit. So before there's any probably construction activity, you're looking at May, maybe May, June of this year.
Okay, and
But that can always, fluctuate depending on city reviews and contracts and contractors, but that's just a ballpark.
And you're gonna take all of your construction through the back of Kroger and that small section there, or are you gonna take your construction vehicles off of 287?
Yeah, at the time of, the early grading permit or when permits get issued, we'll have to provide a traffic control plan and kind of a construction staging plan that, we're a little ways away from that, but I think, 287 and keeping it off of Sublet would be ideal, and keep everything, behind the Kroger as far as a, staging area for construction. But once they get under construction, they tend to go up pretty quickly, but I mean, Vince or Keaton can certainly weigh in on their construction timing.
With all due respect, I think the questions are getting a little off track because you're asking questions that we don't have necessarily all the answers to yet, but that they will be worked out. But I know that you're curious, and I appreciate the curiosity, and as well as the comment about the location. And as Keaton said, we actually look at this location as a nice location, and we're finding a lot of pieces of land such as this location that are otherwise really unusable for anything. And we're taking what is a piece of property that isn't usable, and we're turning it into a very valuable property by creating a housing product that is needed in the various cities that we build in. So the walkability does enhance, is almost one of the amenities of the community, as well as the easy access to freeways that provide great access to employment. As far as how we bring in construction trucks and what have you, I can't sit here and tell you that we've got that all planned out, but I can assure you that we will, and I can assure you that the city will be diligent about making sure that we do it in a way that complies with their requirements and provides safety and as little of a nuisance to our neighbors as possible. But again, with all due respect, I'd like it if we could keep the meeting to school issues.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. I live in that area, and
Okay.
I'm looking at it as if I have a child living in your community, and how's that child get from my house, his home, to his school, or what's going to be?
Oh, and that question, yeah, that question I totally appreciate.
That's exactly, because that child is going to be needing sidewalks. He's also going to be dodging traffic. And I'm looking at it from that point of view, whether or not we have to have a bus in there, whether or not we're going to have multiple buses because they're going to different schools. if that person or that child is going to walk to school because it's actually within walking distance of the high school, but you don't have access to the backside of it to get to the high school, which would be the actual shortest distance. So most of them are going to have to come out through that Kroger parking lot and go down Sublet and go to the high school, or go to the left and go to Patterson. So I'm looking at it as, if my child is there, how did that child get to school? Or if I'm coming home from work, what do I need to do to get to my home? Part of that is there's only one, real outlet off of 287 to get to that. You got the one coming off of 287 going down to Kroger. That's the only one there, but you also got people coming from Kroger that's coming down to get to Sublet to get home. So if there's people that's going to be going through those different exits, and if you have multiple exits off of 287, are you going to be using them? Or is there going to be sidewalks, a difference between that? I've heard everything from, noise reduction because of the noise off 287, putting some type of wall or noise reduction structure on that, which you may not have thought about it as far as your construction, but what we're looking at, or what I'm looking at as a school board member, is how does a child get from your facility to one of those schools? And
Well, that I do appreciate.
And part of what we're trying to decide on, whether or not we're keeping the schools in the same format that we have them in now, which is 2 elementary schools and a junior high and intermediate and a high school, or do we do some kind of new construction to take care of the pre-K schools and stuff like that? So those are the things that we're looking at. So if I'm looking at that and I have to send a bus behind that at 7 o'clock in the morning, because some of those are starting at 7 now.
Yeah.
So if I'm sending a bus behind there at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, with a diesel backing up, or a child having to, a 15, 16-year-old having to walk out of there to walk to the high school, I want to know, where's he going? Is there a dedicated sidewalk? Is there something that person has to look at, or I have to know, or do I need to, invest in getting a carpool together to make sure that child gets to that school safely? That's the questions that I'm looking for.
And I will add on to that we have the considerations of construction traffic adds to our busing situation and our busing flow. And Sublet is the main cut through, because when 287 backs up with traffic, people cut through on Sublet. Construction traffic adds to that. That goes through their neighborhoods, and it creates problems for our transportation. So those are our concerns of the district.
You got the.
And we appreciate that, and to be honest, that wasn't the set of lenses we were looking for in order to provide. Once again, we weren't necessarily planning for school-age children. But if you could provide some direction in terms of what you would like to see or what you feel would be helpful for the current situation, we'd love to take that into account and see if we
Well,
can.
I would like to address that,
those.
because that comes back to my question that I asked earlier when you started this planning, because had we been brought in on that from the start, we could have helped with that from the very start. But we did not find out about this until a few weeks before it went to the Planning and Zoning, and we found out from the Planning and Zoning Commission, not from you guys. So, we could have done this a long time ago whenever this was all being developed and planned.
Let's continue with the question.
Understood.
One other quick thing, one other note that I'm sure you're going to sell as with people that age is the ability to get out and exercise and bike and walk and that type of thing. The nearest park to your development is in Kennedale. It's a small park off of Sublet, but you're going to have to look at people coming from that, from your townhome going to that park, or wanting to use that park is what I'm thinking about.
We listened to.
And
Yeah, a similar question came up with the council member in Arlington, and, the first thought didn't occur to me of a park in Kennedale. We know there's a Stovall Park, which is a large regional park in Arlington, about 1.5 miles east of here on Sublet.
Right.
And what we responded to there is what we've kind of already reiterated, is trying to offset any of that by creating those pocket parks and outside gathering spaces for, on-site for the residents. So you know, they can take full advantage of the natural elements and amenities that we're providing as part of the community.
Okay.
Mr. Rollins? Ms. Rollins?
I think almost every question I had has been answered except the one. I'm curious about the project performance over time. I know as developers, your interest is about getting it done, but I'm curious do you have any information about the change in the format of the previous projects you've done, like over a 5 or 10 year period? How many of them have actually decided to add things that would increase the attraction of families, like the playgrounds and things like that, or have they all stayed the way you developed them?
Well, to be candid, we have been in this niche, this space for only a couple of years now. So I don't have a historical data to go back on and let you know, like a 5-year historical perspective. I can't tell you that. I can tell you that from a timing standpoint, this doesn't really answer your question, but I think maybe somebody brought it up. I think we have an 18-month build out from when we start construction planned. Typically, when these communities get sold, they don't get sold until they're fully stabilized. And by that, they typically, someone who would be buying a community would like to see 1 year of all the units being rented. And that's not always the case, but typical. My earbuds are wearing out. So typically you're looking at about a 3-year time frame for us if we were to sell the community. But I don't have, I apologize, but just to be honest, I don't have a 5-year turnaround to tell you. And of all the competitors that we've looked at, the ones that are similarly positioned to us also do not have child-centered amenities. But there are other communities that do have child-centered amenities, and they typically have the 4-bedroom units also included in their mix of plans. So I don't know that directly answers your question, but it's the best answer I can give you at this time.
Well, and Arizona is kind of a retirement place. You can't really compare Arizona to Texas.
Are there any other?
Ms. Moody showed up, I don't know if you want to check.
We had a board member come in partway through the meeting, and she's been trying to catch up, and I
Yes,
looked down.
I am.
Do you have any questions that you would like to address?
I need two clarified. You said 20 children per 100 units?
Make sure your mic is on.
No,
No, okay, so give me that clarification. 10 children.
10% of the number, 10% per 100. 10 children per 100 units.
And you said 19 units per acre or 15?
We're 15 units per acre.
15 units per acre.
We have 135 units. The number of units is already there. So we know we have 135 units. 108 of them are 2 bedrooms. 27 of them are planned to be 3-bedroom units.
And this space is already zoned for planned development?
That's the zoning we
No,
requested.
it was zone
No.
commercial right now.
It was-
It's in the second reading. They've had one reading before the city of Arlington. Next Tuesday is the second reading before the city of Arlington. And it was voted 5-2, I guess,
Right.
to go to the second reading.
But right now it's
That's-
zoned
that's
commercial,
correct.
Yes.
but this is not commercial.
It's not technically in
No,
Arlington.
this is not
No,
commercial.
it's not.
Multifamily.
This is multifamily.
Correct.
It has to be changed to multifamily.
Any additional questions? Wait a second, Ms. Moody is.
I am,
Okay.
I'm processing. Well, I would like to say that one comment, I'm not sure who the gentleman was that said it. You said the value was for Arlington, and that's true. The value would be for Arlington, but the cost is going to be for Kennedale ISD and our Kennedale residents, so,
Hey, this is Robert Dorzell. I'm the guy that kind of got all this mess started, I guess, by doing the Kroger and second phase and all. I understand a lot of the comments and so forth, but to me, the one thing that I haven't heard anybody mention from KISD is, I mean, just with what we've been able to develop there so far, and with the some of the buildings like LA Fitness and the retail building not yet fully appraised, and then with these townhomes, and I'm using kind of a conservative value of 20 million, I'm showing that that's going to equate to somewhere around $600,000 a year in property tax income to Kennedale ISD. And, you know, to me, that's not insignificant. I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job
He's got
here,
a stake in this too.
you know, for the city of Arlington, but I think Kennedale the ISD is a real winner with regard to the income coming into the KISD. And so, you know, I've heard a lot of negativity and stuff, but I mean, I think that is a positive. I mean, this is land that's been sitting there for 25, 30 years, not earning anything, sitting in ag. And yeah, I don't know if $600,000 a year is a lot to Kennedale or not, but it seems like it is. And hopefully that money will be able to do whatever needs to be done to you know, help the kids that are in this project, the existing KISD, and again, this is not even a fully appraised estimate of the Kennedale ISD taxes. I mean, it's going to be trending more towards $700,000 a year, and you know, I think that's a positive.
Well, and I appreciate your comment, again, in terms of considering the taxable value. The Texas legislature sets a formula, and even though it may increase the value, there are caps on what we can realize without reducing our rates. So the fact that a property adds $600,000 value, it's dependent upon what the property value is throughout the district as to whether or not we actually realize that increase. And the bigger problem is that, again, this will be the 5th project that Arlington has managed to put into KISD boundaries, which are higher density residential than we have almost anywhere else. And you know, again, it would have been nice, as Mr. G has expressed, that the district could have been involved at the earlier phases, have these commentaries. And part of our angst is that Arlington basically says that we didn't plan for it. Well, again, in 1980, and the land use plans, if you look at it, show that this was zoned low density. And actually, this project was zoned commercial. From a standpoint of planning, the district can't automatically assume that low density becomes multifamily high density, or that commercial becomes higher density than commercial. And so again, we have a little anxiety over it because we're given 2 months. We are in some areas at capacity, and 10 kids, if they're all in one class, could create a problem. We just don't know. You know, our demographics are different in a lot of ways, that we have a lot of grandparents caring for their children. So those millennials that might not have children in our district, a lot of them are caring for and raising and keeping their grandchildren. So, I mean, there are a lot of issues about what the dynamic will be. We don't know. But I do appreciate you coming and sharing it. You know, I know that the council put the impetus on you to try to have this conversation. I appreciate you doing that. I wish that we could have been involved earlier. Maybe our anxiety would be a little lessened and your perception of our negativity would be a little less suggested. Again, I do appreciate your efforts. I wish that we could have these kinds of conversations at the first time you plan these kinds of developments. But again,
Well, and I think that that's something that you should talk to the city about, quite honestly, quite frankly. I mean, we build in 4 states, and we deal with a lot of different municipalities. And this is the first time I've ever talked to a school board, to be honest with you. And I guess I'm sitting here listening and I'm thinking, well, I guess my assumption has always been that when we talk to transportation, in the city, that they have already talked to folks such as yourselves to make sure that they are holding your concerns and they're sensitive and planning for your concerns. And so there probably does, between us, there probably does need to be a better road of communication between you and the city itself. that probably would be very valuable, I would think, for everybody's purposes, because we certainly don't want to negatively affect the schools. Am I still on board? Yes.
You're there.
Yeah, I would advocate for there to be more communication between you and the city itself, but I don't want to give you the impression that we simply were trying to avoid you, because again, doing this for 35 years in 4 different states, for this to be the first time I've ever had to do a presentation to the school board, I think after thousands and thousands of homes and units being built, I think actually hopefully speaks to you that our intentions are good, and I hope that you do recognize that and we recognize that your intentions are good as well. You know, you just want to make sure that you're doing your job, which is providing your student base with the best education and the best experience that you can. So.
Well, and I do appreciate that. I mean, I think Arlington's made it clear that a district would not hold them hostage on a development plan anyway. I think, but we needed to have the information so that we could intelligently discuss and respond to our population about how it may or may not impact us, and we're trying to make our plans accordingly. And I do appreciate it. And if you happened in your conversations to come up with, you know, some answers to those issues about transportation and the potential where we can find a way to improve the safety for students that might happen to be in these facilities, we would love to engage in those conversations, even as you're going forward.
Well, I can also tell you that it's important to us too, because yeah, we do want a great experience for our residents, and even especially all the residents, but even the residents without children, they still need to have sidewalks. They still need to have a safe way to get to Kroger's without having to dodge trucks and dodge various other obstacles. So it is important to us as well that we provide as safe of an environment for all of our residents, not just those with children. So we will be sensitive to that.
Douglas, it's Robert again. Is there, you know how, like, when we do shopping centers, we do that auto turn with the delivery trucks and so forth? Is there a way for us to do that with one of their school buses to show kind of how that could maneuver?
Sure.
If we knew the size of the school bus, there's programs that they could take that and they go ahead and look at the actual dimensions.
And that would be helpful. We'll have to look at it as far as, again, depends on the population as to how large the bus has to be for that particular pickup. And so, like,
Well, we can always assume worst case scenario.
Okay.
And that always is a typical starting point.
Right. Are there any additional questions from the last comments?
How many developments have y'all done in Texas?
This will be our first development in Texas.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I was going to say, so just to clarify what he just said, I know you deal with properties or probably deal with places where things meander. So this property sits in Arlington, but it's Kennedale ISD, which is why we keep asking questions. And as the president said, I'm new to the board, so I can pretty much say right now what I wanted to say. In the beginning planning stages, to look at the map and say, this sits in Arlington, but it affects Kennedale ISD, is basically what we're saying. So some of the questions that we're asking now, had this been, oh, let's see how this would affect the 10% of the children per 100 units that are going to be in this development, we would be able to say, okay, think about redoing your entry, or think about doing something different with the exit, or think about 287 is right here and it's a major highway. Most of our schools are on this side of 287, but we have another school on this side of 287. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, hindsight is 20/20, but if you were in our area again, just look at the whole map as well.
We're just trying to be good stewards with the money that the citizens of the KISD has given us responsibility over. And part of that responsibility is to make sure that we provide for every child, whether or not you plan for them or not. If that child is in our district, we're set to educate them. And we just want to make sure that we're ready when that child is going to our schools.
Correct.
That we have a seat available for them, a teacher available for them, and a place for them to learn and be safe doing it. So we're just trying to make sure that those things happen. And with anything else, the sooner you know something, the better it is for you to make plans for that. So that's all we're trying to do.
Anything else from the board? I appreciate your time and willingness to discuss this with you. I do appreciate that. You didn't have to. I'm thankful that you did. And with that, y'all are free to get off the feed with us if you want to, or you're welcome to stay around if you want as well. It's your call.
Well, I'm thankful for the time you've given us as well, and we'll be mindful of all the comments that we heard today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With regard to our meeting, we don't have any notice that we'd have any planned discussion on this issue, and so there would not be any action. But it is important that they do have second reading on the 12th of January. It's in the 6 p.m. meeting. You're allowed 3 minutes per speaker. You can do it online if you want to get online. You can also appear in person, but you'll obviously be wearing a mask. I think it would be helpful if we have an opportunity to raise the concerns we've raised here. I would tell you, though, I would expect that Arlington will not be very open to our comments. They pretty much have said, that they will not be held hostage. Unfortunately, my sense, it's a foregone conclusion. It's development for Arlington. It's positive for them. They're paid an impact fee. They literally have no cost because their incremental costs are paid by impact fees. Whether we have to build a building is not their concern. But I do think it's important for us to at least try to say we have concerns. You guys act like we weren't involved, and my intention is to show them that in 80, none of this was planned to be this heavy of density. We will now have our 5th higher density property, basically within 16 acres, this being 9 of it. So we have a pretty heavy density when you look at the other complexes that are within this overlay, which is 1/2 mile square. And a big chunk of that's taken by Kroger and other commercial and the Albertsons, so it's actually a much smaller area is impacted by higher density residential within our district. The only saving grace I can see from looking at the maps is Arlington's running out of property in our district to do it to us.
This is the last property that they can develop.
No, it's not. They could go down by the Kabbalah plant and stick it to us again, but,
I was told it was the last property.
so again, they'd have to take where the big church school is, but there is property. I don't think they'll go over by Tierra Verde. I don't think they'll put apartments there, but it looks like this is potentially the last one they can dump on us. But I do think it's important if you can, don't be frustrated that they're not going to listen to you, but at least try to have a comment.
Well, and I have a prior engagement Tuesday, so just letting you know, I can't.
Well, you can write in. You can write a comment. You can send a comment and express that whatever it is you're concerned about. So they will take written comment
What
that you're
time
for or
is that?
against it. It's 6 o'clock on the 12th, Arlington City Council chambers. But you can go online. There's a way to sign up online, and you can speak online. So again,
And I will say that whenever I spoke at the last one, I had been in contact with the lady from Planning and Zoning, and she left and went to another job, and they put another lady in the position. And whenever I contacted her about, do I need to show up to the meeting to speak, I was just told to call in. Yet the developers and the 5 people who had the vested interest in it, they were on the actual meeting themselves. So I was having to call in while they were on the meeting, and so I don't know that we'll get on the meeting, but
if you show up in person, you'll be allowed to speak. You just have to socially distance and wear a mask. So, you just have to be at the council chamber. So again, I would encourage anyone who can, please do. Again, it may be fighting a losing battle, but it's a battle that we at least need to say we have concerns. It could be worse. They could be going up to at least, their high density is up to 30 structures per acre. So, at least it's not that bad. But for those who don't know, historically, Arlington had intended years ago to put apartments to this entire section, this entire half-acre development. the district bought the land that we have to prevent apartments from being the sole purpose there. And that's how we've cushioned where we are. But realize that had the district not owned the land behind what's now being developed to basically the creek, they would find a way to put apartments to the creek. So, again, so it can, luckily they're running out of land that they can sell off that can do.
And we are the
We're
major
not
landholder. The other issue is we are the major landholder in closest proximity to them besides Kroger.
Is there any further discussion from any board members? I do appreciate y'all taking time out to come in on short notice. I mean, you know, again, I'm grateful
We're
that
trying
you
to
all.
facilitate this because the thing is next Tuesday, and we didn't have a whole lot of time to get, and we got another meeting next Wednesday also, so there wasn't gonna be time, so trying to get it facilitated was a minute.
Well, hearing no further discussion, I will adjourn the meeting. It is 5:24. Thank you all for coming, and thank one in the audience.